Hi class, this is JilMac, and this video is about Web Development Assignment 13, and we are going to be going over tables. So here we are on our website, and we're looking at tables, which is for web development in our textbook. And I'm going to click on the textbook website to go out to the tables. Now tables, we've been doing tables in Google Sites for some time, but this chapter goes over tables using HTML. So if we look at the first example, which is just table, we see we have our basic table. And when we block copy it, we can see that it's going to kind of, let me blow this up a little bit more. See how it has, when I click on this, this is a cell. Each of these is a cell. And so if I do a view source, or just right click and do view source, here I'm showing basically, and let me make this a little smaller so we can look at the whole table, or most of the table. Here we have our table tag, which opens it up. We have our caption, we have our table rows, and we have 3 columns. And these columns are 62, 63, and 64. So if we kind of move this over, I'll put it here and make it a little smaller so we can look at them side by side. So we have our 3 columns, and notice by saying the word column, it automatically bolds it. So it does some things in the table. And we have our next table row, which is going to put the dollar signs and these numbers in, and then we end our table. If we go up to the beginning, we don't really see, there's no cascading style sheets. So how does this thing get bolded? Well, there is a style sheet built into every single browser that has some basics on it, some basic things that it does with an H1 and an H2. Those are kind of the default browser style sheets. And so that's the reason that when you do column, something special happens to these. Okay, so let's just put that away. And let's go back and let's look at the next example. Oops. And scroll down because we were on tables. When I made it large, it blew up this one also. So we're on tables. The next one is table evolved. So it's a little bit more involved with it. And it now has another column in it. So when we do a view page source on this, let's just pull it out. I get a little snapping there with the windows. We can see that now we have a thread, and the thread for this table header is giving us this nice heading over in this section. And now when we go down to the body of the table, we have added, where is it that we added we've added right here a row, and it tells us that the row has this column in it. Now, because I've said row, it automatically bolds it also, because we're not using, up here in the header, we're still not using any CSS. We're not using any scripting. It's the default settings for when you have a table row that says row. And if you have a table row here that says column, we have certain things that happen. And that's what that's showing you. So now let's go back and look at our, from pages 479 to 480, table evolved. Here is where we now have a CSS. And the CSS is showing us how we can do certain things with tables. The default setting is border collapse. And here we have the border collapse for our table. And then within table, we tell it about the caption, what we want it to do, what font size and font weight. And with our table define and our table footer, we still have some additional things. So that's what we're seeing in this table evolved is using a style sheet, and that style sheet is pretty much just dealing with things in the body and defining things in the table. So let's go back to that table evolved. So that's that CSS. Now we'll look at the HTML itself. So when we look at the HTML itself, now we have some borders around it. And let's go ahead and look at this page source again. Oops, I got to pull this out. So let's look at this page source again, that it's showing us the same things, but now it's using this styled sheet. And the styled sheet is telling us that in the table we have a border, and that the caption, we have a certain font size and a certain bottom, and we have all of these rows. So that's what this is doing. Let's close that one up. Let's go back. And now we're going to span columns and rows and do some different things. Here's the HTML and here's the CSS. So when we look at the HTML, now we've got this nice formatted. If we view our page source and just kind of pull that out, oops, but not too much. Pull it out, we see that we have a caption, and that caption is going to kind of come above it, and then we have the headers, and you can put comments in here. So as you learn how to use things in tables, you can comment on them. Table body. And when we go to our CSS, we can see that we now have more information in the body. We're telling more information to the table. We're also using a WebKit for the box shadows and boxes. So we're starting to pull in some WebKit stuff. From our CSS3, we have our caption, we have colors, and all of this. So that's tables. And if I took and I block copied this table, suppose I block copied all of this table. This one's a little advanced, so I'm not sure. Maybe I'm going to go back to an earlier, simpler one. Here's one. If we were to take this information, block copy it, and we open, say, a spreadsheet. So here's a spreadsheet. Let me go to a new sheet. And we said Control V. It doesn't really break it up. But if we take a spreadsheet like this, we can copy this. So sometimes you can copy it, sometimes you can't. We'll be copying that in a minute. So this little thing didn't allow me to. But what if I just took what was in here? Let's just take what's in here and copy that. And now let's go to a spreadsheet and paste that. Okay, so when you start getting into the fancy stuff, it kind of ignores it and just puts all of this in one big, record. But if you just take the simple stuff, then you can block copy it and put it right into a spreadsheet, and you retain all of that cell kind of thing. We can do the same thing if we go to a word processing. So here's here's our Word document that we're all familiar with. If we Control V, we have put this table into a table in word processing. But we could do the same thing with cutting and pasting that, and we could put it into our Google site. So here we have our Google site for assignment 13. If we wanted to come up to the top and just create a new table or a new sheet, and we'll just call this table, and we can create it. Oops, I didn't spell it right, and we just want to paste in. We now have this nice table inside of our Google site. If I were to go up and click on the HTML, here is the HTML that created that table. And if I wanted to, I could you know, change the color to say 25. I have no idea what this does, but we could update it. I guess 25 doesn't do anything, but if I could remember how to do the color codes, maybe I can do that. Let's try it again. I gave it a 25. This is collapse color. How about this padding? I think I can say color equals red. I might have to put some different things in. Let's update it. And actually I did change something in there. So you can modify that HTML, you can do different things, and using table code, you could also, you know, I could delete this. Let's undo it. And if I wanted to, I could create a table, and I'm just going to insert this table. And now if I wanted to look at the HTML, I could see that this table, I have just created HTML code for it. So you could take this code and you can put it into some HTML, and it would come out, and the table would probably look something like this. Yeah, I'm just going to discard it. I just wanted to show you that. And let me just delete this page that I created. So that is kind of an overview of Assignment 13's table. And I want you to have fun with that when you're doing the examples. And I'll talk to you in the next video.